Right, good evening, ladies and gents. Welcome everybody down for tonight's forum. These are regular events we have during over the past few seasons, as I'm sure most of you will know, and normally they turn out very enjoyable. Without any further ado, please welcome to the stage our sporting director, Gregor Rioch. Anyway, you're welcome. And somebody who I'm sure doesn't need any introduction, our manager, Shaun Maloney. Welcome, Shaun. Some water here, boys, if you want some water.
Prefer a beer.
Right. We'll have a chat with the guys, and anything you want to take in may come into your questions. If we can just say as well, when you write out your questions, if you can make them as clear as possible and easy to read, if you will, please, that would help us greatly. Right, first of all, if I can turn to you, Shaun, just approaching, 10 months, is it now, 11 months since you became manager or so, been a bit of a baptism of fire, I suppose, is how we can aptly describe it.
Yeah, it's been. Good evening, everyone. It's been some 10, 11 months, really. We don't have that long, do we, to talk through that? But it feels really, really positive where we are now. There's been so much change within the club in the last 4 or 5 months, but the position that we're in now, as in a club, it can change result to result, obviously, but it feels like a really positive sort of place that the club's in just now.
Yeah, it is, and there's a feel-good factor about it. But I just want to get a flavour of things for now, and obviously we'll get questions from the floor later that we'll go into a bit more depth. But just from you yourself, as I say, you've been here 10 months now, and in terms of where you would like a Shaun Maloney to be and play, and the style of play, and basically who would have been your influences on that?
In terms of how the team looks, I really want it to be how a Wigan team looks, whether it's me sitting here or somebody else. I think the biggest influence on me at this club was obviously Roberto and how the team played. In terms of where we are at trying to get to that level, I think we're a fair bit off. I hope everyone here has maybe seen some big improvements in how we play. Hopefully, it's definitely not been dull. We can score a lot of goals. At the moment, we can concede. But I think we're on the way to, I've said this before, we're on the way of hopefully creating that Wigan DNA again, where 10, 11 years ago, it was Wigan, Swansea that played a certain way. And for me, it was the most enjoyable to play in. I hope it was one of the most enjoyable to watch. I think if we get it right, we can compete with anyone. I think we're just at the very start of that. In terms of the team this season, there's lots of things that we've had to adapt to. Some things I've learned along the way. At the very beginning of the season, we were really, really expansive, created a lot. Also, a lot of chances against us. At the moment, I think we're a little bit harder to beat than what we were 3 months ago. But I still like the way we play, and I like the way that we can attack at times.
Well, we'll touch on that in a few moments. But now, Gregor, welcome, new sporting director. So I've got down here a few questions I want to ask you, but we could be here all night, really. But I just want to know, obviously, the Youth Academy has been such a big part of your life, and something we'll touch on very shortly about the great success of the Youth Academy here at Wigan Athletic. But for you, how big a decision was it to not supposedly step totally away from it, because I'm sure you're still involved, but to leave that post to become sporting director?
Oh, thanks, Tommy. Evening, all. It was. It's been a big transition in the sense of the magnitude of the job and the role and the responsibility of a sporting director. I think there was a lot of discussion about it at the end of last season, and having had nearly 10 years as an academy manager, that's a big pull. Having turned up every day, pulled together a department and a team of people working towards developing young players and the success that we have had over the years, to then going into the cauldron, really, into the deep end, as it's well known at first team level. But I think the support of the new ownership, Ben, the chairman, Shaun, I think the discussions that we'd had over the summer, it was an absolute no-brainer for me, really, to try and progress myself onto the next level and see if I can help try and do similar things that we did with the academy, with the first team environment, and try and create that sort of continuity and stability. And I have to say, it's really, really enjoyable. As I have done over the last 10 years, I've loved getting up every day and going to work, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Well, you've touched on it there. That was going to be one of my next questions, really. You know, how much you're enjoying it, and if you had to give a job description and your main responsibilities as a youth academy, I take it it's like developing the young players for the future. When you get into the first team, as I'm sure Shaun knows, it's more about results are important. You know, the development is important, but its results are vital as well.
Yeah, and we spoke a lot about the process. A process of getting to where we want to be. You just mentioned about the football philosophy. I think it's our job collectively, long term, to protect the DNA of the football club, protect the football philosophy, make sure that we play a brand of football that supporters enjoy coming down to watch and pay their hard-earned money each week. It's really, really vital that we give them something to go home and be excited about coming to the next game. And yeah, I really enjoy it. There's a lot that goes behind the role. Help working towards the departments. My main role really is to support the manager and make sure that in every way possible I can take away all the distractions, all the things that take a little bit longer than normal to get done, so that Shaun can concentrate as much as he can on the training ground and working towards that process of developing those players to win games of football.
Yeah, well, I know you've got a great relationship. You know, the two of you together, and I know how important you two of you were in the negotiations with Mr. Danson and the new owners as regards to survival of the club. I'm sure it's been well documented, and we want to stay on a positive note, but we won't go there. But just on that, we were told maybe, I think it was a Monday, that Shaun would be presenting to Mr. Danson and Ben. And we'd already started to put together the plan, you know, and it was how much can you put into a day and a half to not know how long you might have to present to the new ownership. And but we had a really good go. We did a little bit of in-depth background on the companies that Mr. Danson owns, and we arrived here together at the stadium, and the elevator opened. And Shaun walked in with his laptop, and as the doors were shutting, I said to Shaun, "Only you can mess this one up now." And his face was like, "Oh, pressure," but just to try and take a bit of heat off. But again, we talk about moments. That was a massive moment, and obviously, when you've got completely no control now, and it's in the hands of other people, and it shows what a good job Shaun did in front of Mr. Danson and Ben to convince them to come to our football club. I think we're all well aware of how close to the wire we were flying in that with the football club, and it's to everybody, including the supporters, everybody's great credit that we are still here, and we're talking now in a real positive note. So we'll try and stick to football matters in this first section. Obviously, there might be one or two questions directed to the chairman on other matters regarding the running of the club and various things. So, but just for now, Shaun, if we can go back to this season, obviously a great start to the season. We had that little bit of a blip where, you know, results didn't go our way, and then we've picked up again now. I mean, you've said many a times with a young team there's going to be bumps in the road. Was that something you were expecting, or was it just maybe one or two games? Was it longer than you expected? And then, having recovered, how did you keep the confidence of the players high?
I think it's really difficult to predict a number. of games or results that maybe go against you, and also the other way, whether we have a really big run. It's difficult to predict how many games that is.
I just mean, with it being such a young team, was it something you anticipated was likely to happen? You and your staff, obviously.
Yeah, I think I'm still aware of that as well now. I think what I probably didn't quite. It was a little bit of the unknown. I think having the -8 points was such a unique situation. I'd never been in it. I tried to read a lot of previous teams. I tried to read a lot on Eddie Howe's time at Bournemouth when he first took over. I wasn't quite sure what the mentality of the group was going to be like. One, to start the season, what was it like to start -8? And then the biggest sort of unknown was actually when we got past the -8. We got past it quicker than we all expected. And it just felt like it was a moment where we almost... I think the whole club took a moment to almost breathe. But then we had 3 or 4 games really quickly. And then we had to almost reset where we were trying to get to in a short period. So it's just a bit of an unknown. I think with a younger group, I think I am aware that they might have really good games maybe less so because they haven't experienced the league like senior players. But I want more. I think I really like what a lot of the young players have done. I like what some of the senior players have done. But we have to keep pushing. I know we want to stay in this league as much as we can. But that still doesn't mean that when we get beat, you accept that it's going to happen because it's a young group. I think I expect it could happen again. But at the moment, it honestly feels like I'm a little bit game to game. I can't really envisage what the next 5 games will look like, 10 games. It just feels like the next game, Leyton Orient, how are we trying to win that game? And it's my job to try and find the best way to do it.
But the mentality of players generally, I mean, I don't think it's ever changed. The players always think they're going to go and win and they're going to play well. But when things aren't going right, is it difficult? Particularly with younger players, did you see a change in them and how you keep them buoyed up, really, where you must rely on some of the senior players as well to do that?
Yeah, I think during that 4 games where we didn't win, or 4 games we lost, I think there was also things within the team that I knew even the first 4 or 5 games. So, as I said at the start, we were creating lots of chances, but we were also conceding chances. So, I think what that 4 game, we got beat at Stevenage, then we played Fleetwood in the EFL Cup, and there was an international break. So, in that time, as you have probably all watched, we had to change a certain structure in the team that I felt gave us the best chance to limit the amount of chances we conceded, but still giving the Godos, Humphreys, Asgard more, or just the same amount of creativity. So I had to change part of the team. That can change again. Maybe some injuries as well that we go into Leyton Orient. It might be further down the line, players come in and out of form. At the moment, we're trying to sort of develop the younger ones, but at the same time, I have to try and find ways to win games, and that's always the conundrum for a manager, isn't it?
It is. And I'm going to turn to Gregor in a moment, but as regards the younger players, you've had to rely on them maybe more so than you would have liked, given the situation, the graduates coming through. It was certainly forced on us a lot more last season when we were, we had to get rid of everybody when we went into administration and all the shenanigans that went on then. But this year, we're still having to rely on the young players, and they've been great success. For those who don't know, I don't know whether you do or you don't. I mean, tonight, Charlie Hughes and Marshall Godo were involved in the England elite squad, beating Germany 3-2. They were playing again tonight. So we'll touch on that in a minute with Gregor, with the success of the young players. But is that something that's sort of in the makeup now going forward for the club?
Yeah, I think it has to be. I think part of the presentation to Mr. Danson and his team is how do we try and make this club as close to self-sustainable as possible. I think it's I'm more aware of my responsibility in that to everyone in the room. We've got staff members here. So when Gregor talks about me presenting, we actually have a lot of staff members that created that presentation here. So I'm aware that for us to be the club we want to be for the next 5, 10, 20, however many years, we have to create young players. I pretty much after that presentation, it's like, right, well, we presented how this looks. Let's get to work. I am fortunate that the younger players are, in my opinion, I think were good enough. They were in the building. They just needed to be given an opportunity. And some of them have been. Some of them are real special talents. They've done incredibly well, but I keep telling them I still want more.
Well, I'm going to touch on that now with Gregor. Obviously, for your time at the academy, Gregor, you must be immensely proud when you see the young players come through. Obviously, the Sam Tickles, Charlie Hughes is obviously, I think, the one that everybody sort of picks out of the bunch. But you know the statistics more than me. The number of games and minutes played by academy players in the season or two ago, and those who've made the debuts this season, it must give you a great sense of pride to see the development, and certainly in the international stage now.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I mean, I'm really proud. I mean, it's like a decade's worth of work, really. And when I talk about the team that was forged and developed down at the academy, there's some amazing staff there that were here just before I arrived, nearly 10 years ago, and they're still here now. And for them to still be here shows how much they enjoy turning up each day to the academy and developing young players, watching them grow from the age of 9, 10, 11 years of age, and you see the one or two that do flurry through and get to the other side and break into the first team is no greater feeling. And we developed and produced a flurry of players a few years back, and we got ourselves as a football club into a bit of bother. The people from Begbie sold them on for not a lot of money, and we had to do it again. And
was that painful to watch? Obviously, it was painful for us as supporters, you know, to see all that great players departing the scene, if you like, for next to nothing. But for you and your staff, it must have been a really hard thing to take.
Yeah, it was really tough because there was a lot of hard work there, and we wanted to see if we could get the final goal, really, which was to get them into the first team and get regulars into the first team. And then, of course, you don't mind them outgrowing the club. If the club doesn't go as quickly as the young player develops at times, then they outgrow you and they move on and they get sold to some of the top clubs, or even better still, we take them there. We lost a few at the time, but I presented 2 years ago at the end of administration, and I said we've got 3 years to do it again. And the aim was to develop those players on that we had in the building, those that might have been missed along the way a few years back by the vultures. And but again, and I can't speak highly enough of Shaun when we talk about giving the opportunity to young players. Sir Alex Ferguson used to talk about it all the time. You never know what a young player can offer you until you give them the chance. And it was part of the plan at the end of last year. Shaun said to me, "These lads are coming away with me in pre-season," and that was back in February. And usually I'd find out a week before pre-season which lads would go. And this was a plan. And some have maintained it and stayed in there. Some need a bit more time. And as you mentioned there, a few of the boys have really excelled. Like Charlie Hughes has come onto the scene 12 months ago. And he just looks a top player.
Become a man.
He has. He's become a man. And amazing. I mean, every journey is different. We won the Under-15s Premier League Cup a few years back in Charlie's year group, and Charlie couldn't get in the starting 11 as an Under-15.
Is that something? How quickly do you change as youngsters? I mean, we've all come through the ranks at football clubs, and you know, at 14 and 15, you think you can compete with all the great players who are above you, but it soon becomes apparent there's a level you've got to sort of slowly try and get to. I think we've seen a little bit with Chris C. He came on the scene really well and then maybe had a little bit of a dip in his development.
Yeah, and it comes at different stages, and you just got to have time, be patient. If they've got talent and they've got something, you've got to be patient. Tello Asgard is a prime example of that. Tello is 6'3", he's an Adonis, he looks amazing. But at the age of 15, 16, he was 5'1". Struggled to get about the pitch.
No out outfield.
No, yeah, well, there's no harm in that either. But
don't we, Shaun?
Sorry, I said that in the wrong stage there. But we know with Tello what talent he has and had at such a young age. patience and just give them the platform for them to develop and grow and flourish, and eventually they'll get there. Yeah, we got some really talented young lads. I'm really proud. I'm really excited to see the future of them. It's great to see Baba Adiko this season. He's just been called up for Republic of Ireland under 21s. I could go through the long list, but, you know, Baba's had a lot going on in his life, you know, just recently become a father and recently broke into the first team as a regular, recently called up for Republic of Ireland under 21s. I mean, you know, it's
great
amazing.
time, isn't it? Great time for him, and it must be a nice. You can use, both of you can use this as a pathway to for the youngsters to say this is where you can go, because that pathway is open to the first team. Shaun.
Yeah, it's a big part of what the club has to be moving forward. I think many years ago when it was my time to play, we had Callum McManaman come through in his own way. Yeah, we have to be the club of choice. I know we've got some massive clubs in our area, but we have to be the choice where young players look at us and think, I will get an opportunity there. And I think the plan that we had in place is you have to also create space for them. So when you mentioned Chris C, I think Chris C's really now starting to fulfill the talent that he has. It's my job. I have to create the space for him in the squad and the team to go and show what he has. And I think, I hope over the next coming months, the more news that we get out, the more players that play, young players, no matter if there are other clubs just now, see us as the place to go and play. And within that, I hope it's to go and play and hopefully to win. Well, that's great for the youngsters. I mean, we've spoken in the past about, you know, for those who were a bit older in the room, you look back and you remember the Crew was the place to go for young players to develop and come through into the first team. Many years ago, it was Burnley who had that, and the ambition must be for Wigan Athletic to have that academy. Yeah, without doubt. I think our aim is to be the best academy to develop young players in the country, and that we top clubs that develop the Premier League players, and we see that. But there's no reason why not. I think 43% it was of our minutes on the pitch has been taken up by academy graduates this season, which is an amazing achievement. And like everything else, the supporters in here. Every supporter of their club want to see one of their own, don't they? There's no greater feeling, and then there's that connection between player and supporter, which we talk about a lot, is sometimes drifting out of the game. And if you see one of your own representing you guys, playing with passion, playing with that commitment, playing like it means something, then there's nothing better. Well, Shaun touched on it earlier on when he said the DNA of the club, and you know, as past players, I know that from my era and players I speak to who've played for the club, there always seems to be that affinity towards Wigan Athletic. No matter where they go after they've been at Wigan, they always have a gravitation to think that Wigan was their club. Shaun? No, it does. It's I've been at a few clubs in my career, and it's a special feeling that you get here. It's still there. I think I know we've changed training grounds since I was here as a player. They went to Exton. I absolutely love Christopher Park. I see every member of staff numerous times a day. I see every player, cleaner, everyone throughout the training ground I see on numerous times, and it just feels like. And it's the same from the support, really. Sometimes when we lose, it's maybe different, but it's. But in general, look, there's a certain sense of the club that, they welcome you in, no matter where you're from. 10, 11 years ago, we had people South America, a lot of Spanish, and it's just felt the same. That no matter where they came from, everyone was really welcomed in, and it feels the same from the support. And the academy players are really sort of bringing that sense. It doesn't matter to me in terms of the age. Charlie Hughes has been captain. Scott Smith has such a different journey at this club, but he's the biggest Wigan fan you can imagine. I love having that sort of sense of that Wigan DNA already in the club. You see, that's where things changed so much. In my day, we were all either Scousers or Scottish, and we didn't have a training ground. We had to do laps of the pitch was our training, really. But Gregor, same for you. I mean, as I say, you know, I keep going back to the academy because it's such a vital issue with the club, and I'm sure it's something we'll touch on later with the long-term plans. And in fact, we'll touch on that now. Long-term plans and
Gregor, you know, for the club as sporting director now, you must have both discussed it together with the new owners, the direction that the club needs to go.
Yeah, I'll leave the football side to Shaun. I think the long-term plans for me as a sporting director to create that stability. We mentioned there before about how much it costs to run a football club and player contracts these days, etc. I think to try and bring about as much sustainability as possible to the football club, long-term sustainability. It's important that the supporters wake up every Saturday morning knowing that they've got a football club to come down to watch at the stadium. We've been through that, haven't we, where we've not been sure whether it was going to continue or not on a couple of occasions, and that's not a nice feeling. So I've felt over the past couple of years that I want to try and be part of the solution and not part of a problem. And part of the solution is developing those young players, making sure we create pathways, making sure that we have experienced players to bring those young players along. Some players to outgrow us, reinvest, be able to provide Shaun and the management team with good players, good finances to bring in good players. On top of that, we of course have had a bit of a rebuild in different departments, like the recruitment department. You know, we need to. We've just brought in a head of recruitment called Stephen Gormel, very talented individual who will help us look at young players and players to come into the football club, and we need to build a team around him as well, because we've got a lot of good departments within our first team infrastructure, very, very skilled, very talented staff members, and it's important that we continue to build on that.
And Shaun, we're approaching that dreaded January transfer window, and we've spoke about how good our youngsters are. In some ways, it's such a credit and a pat on the back to the club and everybody involved that, you know, there is interest from the bigger clubs in our better players. But is that something you look at and think, well, that's to be expected? And as we've said, it's part of the sustainability of the club, really, long term going forward, to create our own players. But for you to see if the possibility of them leaving, does that make it? How much difficulties does that create?
No, that's pretty normal. I think just with how talented they are, we have to plan for every eventuality. This window, the following window. That's kind of where we're at the moment. I think as we move forward with Gregor's role, with the recruitment department, I think we can start to look even further windows ahead. No, I've got no problem with that. I think we just have to plan for the eventualities.
It's a pat on the back, really, for everybody involved, isn't it? The fact that these players are in demand by the bigger clubs, to speak of, you know, and it's, you know, you've got to take a great deal of pride in that as well, really, and I suppose at some stage just wish him well.
Yeah, I think you just, I have to, when I came in at the end of January, and the amount of assets that we had within the squad that could be sold was very small. And that's not a disrespect to the last group, because I'll never ever forget that they played for me, they played for our club when they weren't getting paid. So full respect for them. But in terms of how the squad looked, there was very little real sellable assets. So yeah, it's been a big turnaround. Really, the players have to take the credit. Some of their performances, the work that they've done, has put them in that position. In terms of the squad, I really like the squad. I think you've all seen as well, there's been players that have been nowhere near playing for this club in the last 2 or 3 years. Humphreys, Jordan Jones. So I really want to give the squad an opportunity to really fight every day for a position. You might come on, you might do okay, but you'll always get an opportunity as long as you train well. And then football makes a decision. At some moment, Jordan Jones had an incredible second half against Fleetwood. He has to start. And I just want that throughout the squad. So we've had big players, Charlie White, incredible August. And now there's players, Josh Stones, Humphreys, that are keeping people out of the team. That's what I want. I want a really competitive squad so that people in form play, because I know we have a lot of young players, but I also want to create a team that wins. I was really aware last season, in the last 3 or 4 months, or the first 3 or 4 months of the season, is we became very hard to beat. I wouldn't say it was the most enjoyable team to watch. I hope we're now starting to bring some excitement, people with 1v1, speed. my next job is I have to create a winning team, a consistent winning team, and I hope we're on that road, yeah.
Well, we'll just coming to the end of this first session now, but just a couple more questions for you both, really. It's hard to set targets, I do realise that, but I think one of the things that you've said in your interviews is to just, the foremost thing is to stay in this league. But do you look further beyond that with your targets? I mean, do you think, where would you like to see us in sort of the end of this season and then 12 months' time, say?
Yeah, I think the reason I said that at the start of the season, and I've kind of stuck to that, is because I really was unsure with the -8 and what that would do in terms of during those 4 games that we lost, even the games we lost Barnsley as well at home, Blackpool away, it just felt bigger because we were still in the bottom 4. So I think my priority was to just get out the bottom 4, try and get as far away as possible, get to the points number to stay in the league, and see where the season takes us. I really wanted a cup run. Okay, we're through in the FA Cup, but I also really wanted the FL trophy. So I wanted to take that seriously to try and give us an opportunity to get as far as we can. Next season, I think we have to try and build a squad that can give us a chance of finishing in the top 6. I think seasons can always there's certain things around about February, March. If we can give ourselves a chance next season at being in that top 6, that top 2, then yeah, that's where I would like us to be in 12 months' time.
And Gregor, I know it's hard for you to set a target, but I mean, are you given any targets that you've got to try and sort of get to in conjunction with the manager?
Not at the moment, not in that sense. I think it's a bit more difficult when you start on -8 and pre-season starts with a changing room which has received a few scars. And I think that that needed a lot of patching up, which Shaun and the coaching staff did brilliantly. They went away to Hungary pre-season. It was a big turnaround, big turning point for the group. Brought about a togetherness, brought about a belief. That belief is then reinforced with the ownership. We have a great start, don't we? We love beating Bolton, don't we? It's a great day, and we did hit a bit of a bump in the road, but at no stage was there any issues. I think that we talked about that with some young players. I think we just got to keep improving. I mean, I don't know whereabouts would we be without the deduction. We'd be in and around the playoff area, wouldn't we? Which I think we'd have probably accepted. And I think that we've got probably between us our little targets of what we would like to see at the end of each month, and then we'll see where we get to. But just got to keep improving month by month, stage by stage, and if we keep improving, lead into pre-season next season, then I think we can have a really exciting time with some young lads who've got a lot of experience, bringing some experience in and around them, with some of the current and existing players, and who knows.
Right, well, I've got one more question for you both to answer very quickly, but just to remind the audience, if you fill in any questions now that you wish to be answered, as I tried to explain earlier, they might all be of a similar ilk and a similar subject. We'll collate them together, try and pick one question out, which hopefully will answer a multitude of questions that we have had. Lisa and Carrie at the back there, if you just wave your hands, girls, they'll come round and collect the questions that you've written out. As I say, make them as clear as we can so we can read them, and we'll be back in around about half an hour. But before that, one last question for both of you. Hardest part of your job?
Hardest part? Hardest part of my job? It's a good question, really, because obviously I'm in a new role, so there's many new experiences, and of course I went through my first transfer window in July, and
did you get much sleep?
No. To the point when they went to Hungary, I said I'll stay back just to try and get a week back. But I think the most difficult part of the job is the not knowing. You're going into the January transfer window. Again, the first one for me. fortunately, I've got experienced people around. Is the not knowing, it's the permutations, what might happen, what might not happen. Will that player come to us, will he not? Will he go somewhere else? Will this player leave, might they not? I think it's the not knowing, really, and having to react rather than on a short-term basis, rather than probably what I've been used to over the past 10 years of having that time to develop and plan, and things will go off track a little bit, but you've got the time to bring it back on track. I don't think you have that time at first team level now. So the hardest part is probably the not knowing and having to react. So I hope that makes sense.
Shaun?
Hardest part, two things. Hardest part is still telling players that they don't play. So I still tell the players, specifically if they've been in the team and the reason why they're not. That's quite a difficult, just as honest as I can, but I'm still young enough-ish, less hair maybe, but it's to remember what it was like as a player, and it's hard.
I still remember.
Yeah, no, it's a very difficult moment, but I try and be as honest as I can. And then the not the hardest, the real difficult part I find of the job is that it's every single moment of the day I cannot take my foot off the gas. I think that's the most difficult part, because where we all want to get to, it's not just going to happen. So the most difficult is that where we all want to get to at some point, it's not going to happen itself, and it's every single moment at the club, every single moment away. It is a full focus on trying to get us back to a place where we want to be.
Right, before we get to the questions, obviously a very warm welcome to our new chairman, Mr. Ben Goodburn. Ben, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Tommy. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming this evening. I'd just like to start off by saying, what a privilege it is for us as an ownership group to be the custodians of this great club. And thank you as well for everything that you've done. And as fans, I know that you've been through an awful lot over the last few months. And I think without you and without lots of people at this club, and there are far too many to mention, we wouldn't be in the position that we're in today. So thank you very much. It's been an interesting journey. I think this is really sort of the fourth whole month that we have been at the club. As you can imagine, there've been lots of challenges, but again, our ambition is to we're here for the long term, and we're taking our time to work through all of those issues with a really good group of staff. Some that have been here for longer than others. So that's, I think a lot of the questions this evening are on sort of governance and what our vision is for the club and how we would like to structure the club, and we'll come to those in a second, Tommy. But I think for us, the important thing is that we sort of break the cycle that this club and lots of other clubs around the Football League have been through, and to do that, that requires a long-term vision, which is what we have, and we're working hard behind the scenes. A lot of things that you won't know about, you won't heard of, to make sure that we put that vision and that plan in place to make sure that we deliver for this club and for the town long term. We're ambitious, so don't think that we're not ambitious. I think one of the reasons that we are taking our time on some things is that we want to be ambitious in the long term, not in the short term.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Right, we'll come to the questions now, and as I say, it's a cross-section that we've had, and we've picked out the ones that hopefully covers quite a few. I'll direct them to who I've been asked to direct them to initially, but if any other, Gregor or any of you want to come in on the same subject, please feel free to do so. Right, okay, the first question for you, Shaun, is from Sam Leach. Do you feel we need an experienced captain who plays regularly?
At this stage, no. I think the decision around the captaincy of the team was done in the summer. I think when you look at the age group of our players, I picked 5 captains in the summer. So I had McGuinness, Wyke, Lang, Hughes, and I brought a new player in, Sean Clare. So those 5, no, I'm absolutely fine with it at the moment. There'll be moments in the season where all 5 could be playing, 3, 4, it could be 0. For me, it's what they bring off the pitch. So I've relied a little bit heavily on Charlie Hughes at times, but he's stepped up to the mark. So no, what the players give me off the pitch is more than enough at the moment. So no, not right now.
It seems an obvious question, but what attributes do you look for in the captain?
Different, really. I wanted a different age range as well, because we've got a lot of younger players. I wanted one of those captains to come from that sort of age group. From a captaincy, it's different. Not every one of those players has the same attributes. You have Josh, who's a very vocal leader, and Callum Lang's very, very different. He leads by example. I just wanted people that had different experiences through the game, and they could impart that onto the younger players and senior players that we have. So lots of different attributes of those 5, and whether they're playing at the moment or not, it's not the biggest thing right now. It's the culture of the group and really the culture of the club that we're trying to drive forward. At the moment, it doesn't matter whether they play every 90 minutes or it's quite sporadic.
Okay, hope that answers the question there. Right, we've got a couple of questions here now for you, Ben. First one from Julie Forster. Chairman, can you update us on the Fans Fund? Is it going to continue? And if it is still being used by the departments we all asked it to go to? And the second part on that from Leslie Anderton. When will we get a CEO?
Evening, Julie.
Julie. And Leslie. So
firstly on the Fans Fund. Again, I think the place to start here is to thank you all for the sort of significant contributions that you've made over the last couple of seasons. Again, I think to some extent we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that, and I think the improvements in the academy that those funds have gone towards wouldn't have happened. But as the new custodians of the club, we've reviewed the current scheme, and we would like a new scheme that we're working on at the moment that reflects where we want the club to be. I think to give you some comfort, that will very much still be around the academy. That's where we see the growth of the club continuing.
Yeah, and I endorse everything Ben said there. I think the Fans Fund has been really useful for us at the academy over the past few years. I think in particular for myself as the academy manager, when there's certain aspects that you want to do that sit just outside your financial budget. And I think over the past few years, we've had some great success from the Fans Fund. Some young age groups going on trips and tours. We've had equipment that's gone into the analysis department, sports science department, and really enhanced and encouraged what we're doing from the developmental point of view. So every contribution is greatly appreciated, and we look forward to sharing the good news stories in due course through Jake Campbell, our new academy manager, and the things that the Fans Fund will go towards in the future. Thank you.
Shaun, I think the Fans Fund, something we spoke on earlier, it gives the fans a connection to the club, particularly when they have a say where they want that money spending.
Yeah, it's I understand it's difficult to support a club, particularly when you travel away. So yeah, I think we're all very responsible of the money that the club or the fans put in the club. We've spoke a lot, almost all night, around the academy and young players. I think fans have to they must feel a real connection to that. So what the Fans Fund has done has had a real impact on where the team is now and the players that have come through the academy. So yeah, you should all take pride in that. It's putting your hard-earned money there, and you know that it's going to a place that is now affecting the club in the long term. So it's really, really appreciated, yeah.
Right, now a couple of questions here. It's been a real hot topic, I can tell you. So
Tommy had a question from Leslie, I think, as well.
Oh, the CEO, I do beg
Leslie's
your pardon,
question.
you did indeed. Sorry, Leslie, where's Leslie? Sorry, Leslie.
Hi, Leslie. Good evening. So just to give you the current picture, so I'm the interim CEO at the moment, Leslie. Me and my senior management team, we meet regularly. We also have a technical board, which again meets regularly. I guess to give you context, we did this deal in a few days. It's the quickest, I think, EFL deal in history. So we've taken the time to get to know sort of our staff and exactly what the club needs. And we're at a stage now where we're in the final throes of our interviewing candidates. And I'm not going to put a time on it, but I hope relatively soon we'll have an announcement on who that person will be. But again, to give you comfort, there are the proper structures in place at the moment. There's the proper reporting. And one of the things that we've really been working on hard over the last few months is governance and making sure it's robust, making sure that we have the right financial controls in place across the club. They're all the fundamentals that need to be in place, and they're probably all the unseen things that people and fans on the outside don't have an inclination that are going on. But we're working hard on all those things, and as I said, we're at the tail end of a recruitment process to fill that position.
There you go, Leslie. Hope that answers it. Sorry, I tried to pass over it. It wasn't on purpose. Right, a hot topic now, transfer window. Now, we've had numerous questions about that, but we've picked out a couple, which hopefully, like I say, will cover everybody's sort of initial question on it. Do we have a short list of targets for the January window? And pending no unexpected departures, how many additions do we want or need? Shaun, I think we'll come to you firstly on that one, but I'm sure it's one for you all.
I'm really happy with the squad. So I think there are lists. Generally, if I think it's if players want to go. So if players are short of game time or there's a real urge for a player to leave the club, I think I was pretty straight down the line in the summer. If somebody doesn't want to be at our club, then we're quite happy to facilitate that. But I think there'll be lists. But at the moment, I'm pretty happy with the squad. If there's movement, it will generally because maybe a player wants to go and get some game time or move somewhere else, and then we'll replace them. So, yeah, we're sort of preparing for everything. But at the moment...
sorry to interrupt,
no, it's
John.
okay.
Is that a conversation you have with players, when they're not getting games? Is it do they come to you? Do you go to them and say, look, what do you think of, if inquiries come in?
We haven't quite got there yet. This window, it's still pretty early. It might happen in the next few weeks. I think generally you get players coming to ask why they're not playing, and at that point you just have to be really honest and also work with them maybe to fix certain things that can get them back in the team. When it gets closer to the window, then again I'll just be really honest. But it's you've seen the squad. I've mentioned before, you've had Jordan Jones completely finding it very difficult to get in the squad. He's now playing almost every match. You've had Stephen Humphreys has came back this season and just been in incredible form when he's not really been at the club for the last 12 months. So I'm really open and to giving each player an opportunity because you never quite know what level they're going to hit. So I'm pretty patient with them, but my door's always open.
Yes, I think... Long list, more than a short list. I think with Stephen Gormel coming in as head of recruitment, we're in regular conversation. Ben just mentioned there about the technical board. Regularly discussions on players for each position, whether they would be a target for potentially a free transfer because of the transfer embargo, or whether they'd be available for a loan. We know that we can only have a maximum of 7 loans. We currently have 6, so that doesn't take a mastermind to work out that you'd have to manoeuvre loans if you wanted to bring loans in, or they'd have to be free transfers until July. So we have some constraints. So yeah, pleasing that we're happy with the squad. But again, I think it goes back to the what I mentioned about the hardest part of my job is the not knowing really, and having to react. And so no doubt during January there'll be a time when we have to react. I think it's about being as prepared as possible with those lists of players that we'll present to Shaun and the coaching department, and saying, you know, number 1 target, number 2 target, number 3 target, are they possible for us to go and get? And then that's how we would go about it. So as Shaun mentioned before the break, it's about us trying to plan and prepare for future windows as well. When the embargo's lifted, it brings about more options as well.
Right. I'll ask this next question now, which is on the same subject of transfers and what have you. But this is one I'm sure, Ben, you might want to come in on. It's from Rob Taylor. I fully understand that we are running a more sustainable club, but will we have funds available in the summer, or does this depend on the departure of one of our young talents?
Rob, thanks, Rob, for the question. I think, you know, as a football club, we're in a really fortunate position at the moment with the youngsters that are coming through. You know, and again, that's thanks to the academy. If we talk about a sustainable model, you know, what does that mean? And I think it does mean, you know, exactly that. It means that, you know, we're bringing players through, and, you know, we'll try and take them on the journey with us. But there will undoubtedly be some players that, you know, want to move on and perhaps want to play in higher leagues, you know, and that's a conversation that we have. So I think, you know, on the question on the budget, yes, I think, you know, we need to make room in the current squad next summer. It will be the first transfer window where we actually have the ability to pay for players. I think, you know, the shackles are off then. But I think, you know, we've worked hard with Shaun and Gregor and tried to be smarter in the transfer window that we've had and the one that's coming up on loans. But I think we'll just have to see what the position is after the January transfer window closes going into the summer, and we'll make that call then. That probably doesn't answer your question, but I think it's such a moving beast, the transfer market, that you have to keep an open mind.
Right, well, I'll ask this next question because it's a little bit of a follow-on, and you can all jump in on this one, but it's directed at you, Gregor, and it's from Gary Bannister. How has the current transfer ban affected the club, and what is the current process for transfers?
Yeah, pretty much as we said before, we didn't have a recruitment team at the end of last season. The recruitment team left the club. Shaun and I were trains, planes and automobiles up and down the country, meeting players, meeting agents, meeting parents. And it was a case of getting in front of people between us, talking to agents, contacts that we knew, football clubs we knew, of course. When you bring in the likes of Liam Shaw and your managers played for Celtic, it helps, you know, with that contact. And I think from our perspective, it made it very clear. It made it very easy. We weren't able to had any financial contribution to any football club because of the transfer embargo. The only thing you can do in that situation is add a sell-on fee if you bring somebody on a permanent. That is the only thing you can possibly do. So there was no problems with bringing in players for transfers, money after games, etc., etc. So from us, it was about free transfers and loans, which is what we've done. Going forwards in this next window, it's very much the same. There might be a player that has got 6 months left on their contract and is free to leave their particular club. They might be a target for us and an opportunity for us, or loan. So yeah, that's really where we are. Some players are still out of contract and not got a contract since July. The longer that goes, the less likely you're really going to take that particular player because they've been out of the game for quite a while.
Ben, if I can just add that, something you might be able to elaborate on, and yourself as well, Shaun. I know from speaking to the supporters at numerous times at the games, and obviously Charlie Hughes, Sam Tickle are the big ones who come up about possibly moving on. That being the case, would it be you try and get into it? You know, we could loan them back if they went in January, as an example. We'd loan them back for the rest of the season to give us a chance to acclimatise to the fact that we're going to lose that player. But is that something you'd consider in the transfer agreement, if there is one?
It's a very leading question.
I'm being asked all the time. I'm just trying to put the questions.
No, it's a great question, and of course, we're considering all the possible permutations. I also think, without wanting to put a downer on that, context is really important. We've inherited a football club with big losses. They'll be published in our accounts in the first quarter of next year. I'm not going to go into that number, but that is the context of where we're coming from. And I think we do need to be sensible about how we approach the next 2 transfer windows. As I said before, the 2 players that you just mentioned, fantastic players. As a club, of course, we want to sort of try and hold on to them for as long as possible. But we need to consider all the factors, Tommy.
I think the reason I asked the question, I mean, obviously I'm in and around the supporters all the time and speak to them. And I think everybody accepts, and we touched on earlier, are better players. Eventually, if they are good players, somebody's going to come in and show an interest, and we're possibly going to lose them players, which is a big pat on the back for the club. We spoke, like we said earlier, it's just a case of to protect ourselves a little bit. If they're going to a Premiership club and not going to be in the team, for instance, but that Premiership just want to get their hands on our talents, would it be an avenue that you would look to discuss to turn around and say, you'll have him, you'll pay the transfer fee we want, but we want them for the rest of this season?
Yeah, as I said, it's absolutely an option we discuss. I don't think it's in anyone's interest. If a Premiership club comes after our top talent and they're just going to sit in a reserves or 21s team, I think we're fortunate to have the manager that we do at the moment. And I think, if that scenario was to happen, I'm pretty sure that, a sensible manager at another club would want them playing at this club.
Tommy, just on that, I think our young players are sensible lads, and they're very switched on. I think what they will see is that, we've been through this situation before where some of our young players went to Premier League clubs, but they've not had Premier League appearances. So I think the key factor is that young players, the best model for a young player is to break into the first team, play a large number of games, establish yourself, develop your reputation, and when you get sold to the Premier League, you go in to stay in, not go in and be part of that periphery. And that's really the model for a young player. And our young lads are switched on. So, I think if and when the time is right, we will all know when that is. And I think we will still continue to give that guidance to the young players, their families, their agents. And as we say, then when that happens, you go, everybody's a winner.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly my point, Gregor. The thought process I was thinking is more, it's hard for Shaun then, if he loses a play in January, to keep the momentum of the club going if we lose our better players. And, is it something we can try and protect ourselves from in that instance?
Yeah, we'll try and plan. I think, at this very moment, we have to plan for Charlie Hughes, Sam Tickle, for the rest of the season, next season. And it's only at that moment where something changes that, then we can put in place things that will replace them. At the moment, I'm really happy with them. They're doing okay.
He's a hard man, and he's doing okay.
They've had such a big spike in sort of first team. Sam obviously didn't play first team until the Rotherham game at the end of last season, so he's been good. I think he can get even better. The same as Charlie, Baba, even Scott Smith. We've got some really good young players coming through academy, but there'll be a moment where there'll be another young player. So what I spoke earlier, Chris C is really pushing to get in our squad, our 11. There'll be a moment where somebody might go, and that space is there, and I have to give it to him to go and try and take it. So let's plan for it. Hopefully not too soon. Two very talented boys, and hopefully they take us to a good position in the league this year.
Yeah, and like you touched on there, Greg, they're all very well-grounded lads, aren't they, all of them? It's credit to the club and the academy again. Right, one for you, Shaun, from Andrew Maxwell. How often do you speak with Roberto?
Reasonably often. Do you know what? The great thing about Roberto, it's normally in the toughest moments you hear from the people that you're closest to. So when there's a tough result, or 2 or 3 tough results, I'll normally get a phone call. He's at Portugal, so I don't need to repay that favour that much at the moment.
Scotsman.
But he's... really... it's like any friendship. You hear from them just about at the right time. So he's coming. I've invited him and his family to the game on Boxing Day. So I think he's agreed to be one of the... something for one of the big supporters association. He's been. I'm not. Yeah, maybe not mascot, but so he's going to come Boxing Day, and he's always looking after our results. Yeah.
Right, okay. We'll run through these next few questions as quick as we can. Time's sort of getting on a little bit. One for you, Mr. Chairman, from Mr. E. Chaser. How do you see the future work with the rugby club, and what type of collaborations do you see? Can I just say on that one, people don't realise there has always been a connection with the rugby club and things gone on over the years. I know, Shaun, you speak to Mark Peake, don't you, a little bit? You know, Gregor, the academy staff have had all the coaches from both the rugby and have had a get together, just a sort of, you know, to sit around and chat about things and how they can help each other. But the question was to you, I'm afraid, Mr. Chairman. So first of all,
thanks
to you.
I think, you know, we're in a very fortunate position. You know, I said it was a privilege for us to be custodians of this club, and you know, the same applies to the Warriors. You know, 2 great sporting clubs in one town. You know, everyone in this room should be proud of that. I think there are already lots of collaborative things going on. You know, Shaun and Matt meet regularly and have spoken a lot. The academies meet. My senior team, you know, meet with their counterparts. There are lots of things that collaboratively as a club, as 2 clubs, happen already. You know, and that's driven by the people here. You know, that's not necessarily us coming in as the new ownership group. You know, we're not the owners of the rugby club yet. So, you know, that transition is still ongoing, and that happens on the 1st of December. So, yeah, it wouldn't be right for me to comment on anything in particular now.
Yeah, look, in terms of with Matt and Chris, I've met them a few times and done quite a few things with the commercial team as well. So really good people. We share a stadium, training grounds, minutes apart. Yeah, just really good people. So the more often I can see Matt in a social environment, and we just talk. Yeah, it's been really really useful. So yeah, I just think that collaboration will just keep growing. And again, it's about the people. It's always about the people.
Can I just ask a question? Can I ask? Sorry, man. Can I ask how many of the people in this room are also Warriors fans?
No.
Since Alan.
Okay.
No, there's a few. I mean, that's how it should be, isn't it? You know, you're always going to have your club, and you know, it just seems a shame, really, that it does seem this little bit of a banging heads together when it's, you know, different sports. So I don't really know why we do have this. Well, I do know, but we'd be here all night if we went into the whys and wherefores. But there you go.
No, I think just to add to that, I think it's really interesting with the with two great sporting clubs that are trying to develop elite young athletes, and if we don't tap into what each other does, then we would be crazy. So last Thursday evening, the two academies met together for a CPD evening. All the coaches were together talking all things
CPD.
development. Continual progression of development and personal development. You know,
I asked for the audience.
Yeah.
I knew.
That's okay. Yeah. No, I think again, it's just sharing all things development, and I think they really enjoyed themselves. I think they really enjoyed talking and learning off each other. Take that back into their own fields. And I think now, these days in football, you can go to the Ajax, you can go to the Benficas, you can go to all the different clubs across Europe and learn something. But I think you learn even more from different sports now, and that's what really excites people in coaching. So we've got it on our doorstep. I'm just really pleased that the two academies are leading the way as well in collaborating and learning off each other. It's really exciting times ahead.
Right, okay, we'll move on if we can. As I say, time's passing very quickly. Another one for you, addressed to you, Mr. Chairman. It's a subject as well that it's been going around for a while. What do you think of the DW atmosphere, and is there any ways we can improve it? Good question.
Who's the question from?
There's lots. It's from three people: Sam Leach, Sam Gaskell, and Jack Ashurst.
Look, there are lots of ways we can improve the atmosphere at the DW Stadium. I think first and foremost, it would be, getting more bums on seats in the stands. I think we're looking at, various things at the moment. One of those is having a higher sort of concentration of people in specific areas, specific stands, rather than more thinly spread, across the whole stadium. I think that makes sense for several reasons. You would have seen we've experimented with a fan zone, and we'll continue to do that. I think we really want to bring more younger people to the stadium. That's also, a focus for us. I think you would have seen over the course of this season that players are more visible. Shaun's working hard with the team to make sure that players are available, whether that be in the lounges, in retail, or here, for example, in the South Stand. That's another thing that we're working on. I think as well we want to improve, the fan experience. That might be through a fan zone, but also how we can do that from an entertainment perspective and draw you in to the stadium earlier, and keep you on later. One thing that has perhaps been neglected is the non-match day activity at the stadium. So I think the question was specifically in relation to match day, but at the moment I think there's a lot more this football club could do to bring in exciting events to the DW on non-match days, and that's something we're looking at, and I'm hoping we've got some sort of exciting things to announce for the new year.
Right, well, Excuse me, you'll be pleased to know, Mr. Chairman, that's the last question directed for you. So the next one's football related. We'll ask these very quickly, and then I will give the panel a chance to have final few closing words from each of them. Right, this one's for you, Gregor. Did you expect Cal Mack to come back to be as good as he has?
I don't know. Do you want to answer that one, or
It's addressed to you. So
addressed to me. There we are. Cal Mack. Yeah. A great story. A great story for our football club. I know how close Shaun is with Cal, obviously with their playing days. When I first joined here, Cal obviously had broken through and was an academy graduate and was a flag bearer. For me to be able to use him for our future academy graduates as the one that broke through, the one that played at Wembley, the one that won an FA Cup. I've always believed, and I said to a young lady earlier, that being able to see it, being able to believe it, is massive for young players. And when Shaun phoned me up and said, look, Cal's not been with the club for a good few months, can he come in and train with the 21s? Let's just get him fit. Let's just see what happens. I saw a Cal Mack with the fire in his belly, that little eye of the tiger. And this place is special to Cal as well. And we got him fit. In all fairness to Cal, he got himself fit. He worked really, really hard, and he earned himself a contract. And I think it's proven to be a really good signing, not only on the field because of what he does, whether he starts or whether, and you can almost put your clock to when he's coming off, or when he comes on and makes an impact moment, like scoring 2 winning goals already this season and giving us 6 points. I think he's been immense for the management staff in the changing room as well. Somebody who loves this football club.
I was just going to say, I think that goes back to something we touched on earlier about players having an affinity. And, you know, I've had a sabbatical, if you like that. Probably the one club he would come back to was Wigan Athletic. And all credit to him, as you say, and you, Shaun, for getting him back and in the team. Right, the next one is for you, Shaun. It's for me and Trencher. Again, we spoke a little bit about this earlier. What is required to get Charlie White back to his early season form and back in the team?
He just needs an opportunity, really. I was really pleased with what he gave us against Tranmere, even for that 60 minutes. Charlie's just, he was incredible in August. And then just after that sending off against Portsmouth, Stephen Humphreys just went in a very, very good run, and still in that run. So I think Charlie's the same as any player that isn't in the team. I know what he can do. I think Charlie will still have a big impact this season. I'm convinced. Just needs to train hard, which he is. Show the right mentality, which he is. And the same as every other player, when he gets that opportunity, you have to grasp it. And that's what I like about the squad. You need to grasp it, because I like the idea that the next person that gets that opportunity, if you don't take it, somebody else will. So still really happy with Charlie. There'll be a moment he'll have a big impact in our season again.
Well, I've enjoyed saying it. We've overrun time as well. It's been so enjoyable with these gentlemen here today. I hope you have as well. But before we close, we'll ask each of the panel just to give us their closing thoughts on anything they want to touch on. First of all, Chairman, if you can.
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you for listening. I think as an ownership group, you know, our connection with you is really important to us. You are you're the continuity at the club, and have been. I think, you know, the last few years demonstrate that and how important you are to the club. So thank you again, and I look forward to doing another session like this, you know, very soon.
Again, just reinforcing Ben's words of a huge thank you. Thank you to everybody who's turned out this evening. It's been a whirlwind of a few years, a few months, a few weeks, and it keeps going. And I know that we sometimes want a little bit of normality where we're not on that roller coaster ride, but let's hope we're on a roller coaster ride that is going upwards, and continues in that upward trajectory in the coming years, and enjoy it.
Yeah, just want to say thank you really for your support. Home games and away, it really is appreciated. We've had some big travel aways with Exeter a couple of times. I've said quite a few months ago when I first took this job that I want to try and give you a team that you're proud of. I feel we're on the path there, but I also want to give you a team that excites you. So yeah, we're at the very start of that journey, and we're all working extremely hard to give you that. But just a massive thank you to you all, and let's keep going.
Right, there you have it, ladies and gents. That's the end of the questions now. I hope you've enjoyed the evening and you've got the answers that honest answers anyway, and I think that's all we can do here today. On behalf of everybody, like the panel have said, we thank you for coming, we thank you for your support, and we look forward to seeing you as our next fans forum, whenever that be in the near future. Have a very safe journey home. Thank you very much. Good evening.